Hello, this is Niswander. Joining us today on the NOWMAN show is Dustin Brown, who is a multiple award-winning director, screenwriter, and editor whose film Solidarity is a story about two undocumented immigrants living and working in Los Angeles. The film has screened at the 2014 Cannes Film Festival in France and won Best Short Film Awards at the Santa Monica International Film Festival, the San Diego Film Festival, and the Highland Park Independent Film Festival. His 2011 film, Becoming, was the official selection at the Los Angeles Short Film Festival, New Filmmakers Los Angeles, and the grand prize winner at Santa Monica College's Global Citizenship Symposium. He's also the recipient of numerous other awards and recognition, as well as being a 2016 graduate of AFI, the American Film Institute. Dustin's AFI thesis film, Clarity, received the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation for a film that is beginning its festival run. His latest film project is called Solidarity. Let's watch the trailer.
How many hours do you work? Do you work 12 hours a day? 14? Do you make minimum wage here? What's your name?
Solidarity, wow. Dustin Brown, welcome to the NOWMAN show.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Now, Solidarity is a short film, but you are currently right now in production on this film as a full-length feature. What inspired you to make this film?
Yeah, so we made the short film at 2013, and it's had its festival run. The initial idea, I guess, when I was in high school, I grew up in Georgia, a small town near Atlanta, and in high school, one of my best friends growing up was undocumented from Mexico.
Oh,
and,
really?
So I just saw after we graduated and people went off and got jobs or went to school, went to college or whatever, and he couldn't do that. He wasn't able to find a job or go to school, and I just saw the struggle that he went through. And even though he came here as a baby, he lived his whole life here in the States, but he just felt like an outcast, and he felt like an outsider, and it really affected him. And then when I came to Los Angeles, and I met an actor, a good friend of mine, Montes Valenteas, who's the lead actor in the film Solidarity, and he came as an immigrant from Lithuania.
Wow.
And he had a very similar experience, talking about him and feeling like an outsider and struggling to be treated as an equal, you know. And I saw the parallels of these two people's lives and their stories, and I realized that, you know, there's a similarity there, and there's a common human experience that these two people are going through, even though they have different backgrounds, different culture, different languages, but there's a shared human experience there, and that was the first inkling of wanting to tell that story.
And it's a great human story, and you're very good at capturing that on film as well. Now, you're a writer, you're a director, you're a producer, you're a cinematographer, and you generally do everything, right, when you're beginning your career. The next clip that we want to watch is a film called Becoming, and let's watch that right now.
What's it gonna be like?
I don't know. Like before you were born, I guess. You know, you just don't exist.
Is that what you really want to do? 9 to 5 office job?
You should be searching out a career, doing something, being concerned about your success in this life.
Then what are you gonna do with your life?
You can't function out of fear. That's no way to make a decision. I'm not gonna end up like you.
So Becoming, it tells the story of basically one man's dilemma about survival in the world and trying to, again, the human conflict with, pursuing your dreams while trying to survive in the world. What inspired you to create this story?
Yeah, I mean, that's a, in a way, I had just moved to Los Angeles, and I was in school at Santa Monica College, and I was wanting to make movies and tell stories, and I was looking at other people that I had known, that I'd grown up with, and looking at, in a way, my dad, and seeing, and partly inspired by John Lennon's "Working Class Hero" song, and
Fantastic.
Thinking about this idea of, how sometimes it feels like our life is just pre-planned for us. You go to school so you can get a degree, so you can get a job, so you can work your whole life until you retire, and just being kind of forced into this machine. And here I was, I had traveled across the country, and I moved out to LA, and I didn't know anybody, and I was trying to follow my passion and not wanting to take the safe route, and that dilemma that I think all of us face as artists or as whatever, who are following our passion, and it became, and that character in the film became a kind of internal struggle with myself, and exploring those themes and exploring those issues, and trying to kind of wrestle with finding my path, and can we create art and fight against injustice, and fight against the corporate system, and fight against these issues, and how do you do that? So that was the inspiration behind that film.
And it communicates it very well. I mean, it leaves you thinking about that, seriously thinking about that, and it's great making films where you walk away from it and it makes you think. You're still thinking about it. Now, Desert Bloom was a film, just an extraordinarily moving film. I've never seen a drone strike portrayed so realistically on film before. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's another film. I mean, as a filmmaker, as a person, I feel a responsibility to speak out against injustice, and I'm drawn to telling stories about social justice issues, or shining a light on voices that are perhaps less seen,
Yes.
And so Desert Bloom was the whole idea of looking at terrorism, if you will, or looking at bombs falling from the point of view of someone living in the Middle East. Particularly in this film, the characters were from Iraq, but it was the story of a family that becomes victim of a drone strike. And what is that like to live where bombs are constantly falling overhead? And,
Yes.
and to find the humanity and to realize that we're all humans, and human life is valid, whether it's a baby born in the Middle East or Africa or here. We're all
the
people.
same, yes.
And to show that duality by having a story where we see the same character that's a victim of a drone strike then becomes the perpetrator of the strike, and to see both sides of that and how that affects people, and how violence and destruction, to raise the question of, can that ever be a just thing for either side of the conflict?
That's right. And it's like, it's it's extraordinarily powerful in that after you watch it, it really gets you to think deeply about what are we doing? I mean, that was the first thing that came to my mind, like, what are we doing? How can we even slightly justify this,
Right.
you know?
Well, that's the interesting thing about, you know, with the drone wars, and you know, President Obama has largely increased drone
Yes,
strikes,
that's
and that's supposed to be, you know, so-called better than sending troops there, but it's terror, you know. It is terrorism, and it is destruction, and it's killing innocent people, and so the whole idea is to shine light on that and to show from their point of view what that may be like.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's still killing people, whether you're killing 4 people or 400.
Right.
And yeah, extraordinarily moving, and thank you for doing that. You had Clarity, which is part of your AFI thesis project.
Right.
That's about the brain, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clarity is it's about the brain. It's also about obsession. It's about a female neuroscientist, and you know, I wanted to explore the scientist as an artist, because I'm passionate about science as well, and I see a lot of similarities between the artistic drive and the passion of that and science and the drive for knowledge and breakthrough, and this was an exploration of a woman who's driven and obsessed to make a breakthrough, who's driven to fulfill her dream, but we start to see at what cost does that obsession do to yourself and to those around you, and so it's an exploration of that, and it's a teacher-student relationship, and it was originally inspired by Marie Curie in her life.
Yes.
Marie Curie, you know, her study of radioactivity and radiation, and she ended up dying from radiation sickness, and so the thing that gave her her life's work and the thing that was her passion is also the thing that killed her, and so this is kind of a modern day exploration of that, and the exploration of obsession and your dreams and your passion and your drive, but the thing that you love, what happens if the thing that you love the most is also the thing that's killing you? So that's that's the exploration, the question of this film, Clarity.
That's great stuff, man. I look forward to, you know, your future work. You got some great ideas there. Tell us real quickly, now besides Solidarity, that film is also in production, right, for a full-length feature, Clarity?
Yes, we have a full-length, and right now we have a lot of the same team back from the short, and we're working on making this film. So that Solidarity will be my first feature film, directorial debut.
Full-length.
So, full-length movie. So we're very excited about that one.
Where can people learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, you can go to my website. It's dustintoddfilms.com. You can check out, I update it regularly. All my work is on there.
Excellent. Dustin, thank you so much for being on the NOWMAN show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And this is Niswander, and you've been watching the NOWMAN show.
The human brain is the most complex system in the known universe. We know we are approaching the deepest of mysteries.
This is the holy grail in understanding and treating neurological diseases.
What did Arthur say?
We will produce results.
Hello, this is Niswander of the NOWMAN show, and I'm here with Kyle Salazar, who is a writer, director, producer, cinematographer, social media maniac, and so much more. And he has, along with his production team, which calls themselves the High Five Collective, and we'll talk about them later, have produced basically non-official music videos and also worked with Frank Ocean, the band Neighborhood, and more. But right now he is working on his first full-length feature, which is about vervet monkeys in the Limpopo province of South Africa. So first, let's watch a trailer. Check it out.
They always say that the vervet monkey population is increasing. We say no, it's not increasing, it's increasing in urban areas because you keep chopping down all of their forest.
All the way to Salazar, you can see monkeys.
There's no peace, and they come in hordes, you know, raid everything in the garden, they come into the house, they have fights.
I shoot this bastards.
You killed 25 last week?
Yeah, half of them.
Do you not think that's a bit cruel?
I'm not cruel.
That's the thing as well with the vervet monkeys, they're like the straw that breaks the camel's back in the sense of the Afrikaans people are in a country that was run by them and now isn't run by them. They're trying to make money off of farming and maybe they have a bad year and they don't make much money, and then the monkeys turn up and they're like, right, that's the only thing I can take out my aggression on, so I'm going to go shoot a monkey.
Inevitably it's human error that causes most problems with animals.
They're cutting down the forests, they're cutting down everything, not for people to eat, to feed the cattle, to feed people.
You know, we take responsibility for like really small parts of our lives, but you know, our lives project outwards.
In the scientific community there's kind of an acceptance now that these monkeys have feelings. It's ridiculous for someone to work here for a month, 2 weeks, a day really, and not see that they have personalities. You can't put two monkeys in the same situation and have them act the same.
You've got traditional beliefs mingling in with capitalism and trying to create wealth, blah, blah, blah. It's a mess.
But there are other people, if you ask, he can tell you the monkeys is the witch.
The hands of monkeys are used to cure the small children.
This is like the new world, basically. I mean, I know they refer to as the third world, but I mean, they're developing. These are countries that haven't been developed and you are developing. Surely there should be some idea about developing it properly.
Every year it becomes more and more vital that these type of areas are preserved and looked after. And it becomes more and more difficult to look after.
We need to protect endangered species. That's part of our heritage. If you don't protect your heritage, you don't have future.
There has to be a change and shift in human attitude at some point.
We really need to try and live with our neighbours.
People must just accept each other because changing culture is not easy.
I think when you get back to nature and you start seeing things from that side, you look at the world very differently.
You can never be able to coexist with animals and human habitation 100%, but at least try and keep what you can.
Kyle Salazar, thank you for being on the NOWMAN show.
Thanks, man.
So, tell me, what did we just see? What is this movie about?
This movie is about so many things, but in particular, it focuses on this species of monkeys called the vervet monkey. And they're pretty prevalent throughout Africa, but I've chosen to focus on this population in South Africa. And that's because there's this rehabilitation foundation for the monkeys called the Vervet Monkey Foundation. And they actually take in orphaned monkeys, monkeys that have, been captured and sold as a pet that then get rescued from being a pet because the people can't handle a monkey anymore, or a monkey that's been hit by a car or shot or caught in a snare of barbed wire, all different sorts of stories, even down to baby orphan vervets who are like few-week-old newborns who've had their mothers killed by those same means, and the babies have nowhere to go, so this foundation takes them in. And that's sort of where the film's central focus is. It's on this group of orphan baby vervet monkeys, and it follows them through the first 6 months of their life. We see them learn how to literally walk and talk, monkey language, but talk and drink from a bottle and eventually eat solid foods. And we watch them, learn how to climb and then interact with each other and then other monkeys in troops. And meanwhile, this is all being facilitated by local African staff members and volunteers who come from all around the world. And then in the end of this simplistic, beautiful story is this heartwarming resolution where these baby vervets are introduced to foster mothers, which are female mother vervets, established members of troop hierarchies on the Foundation. And these babies are then raised for the rest of their life by these mothers and actually get a family structure to live in for their lives. So they go from being these like terrified little babies who have just been either like hit by a car, let's say, and they end up at this place knowing nobody, knowing nothing, and end up then 6 months later being with moms and getting a life. So I sort of use this story, this view, this very humanizing view of these animals as a catalyst for a much broader conversation regarding lifestyle sustainability, the ideologies behind cultural oppression, and a lot of topics regarding sort of how we look at animals and how we look at one another, and especially when it comes to the ideas of, like, I guess you could call it speciesism. That would be the term to call it. Speciesism is something that's like a very serious issue, and I think that throughout history we've never thought about animals as something that's worth anything more than an economic value or like an adorability factor. And so when you start looking at animals as something that's greater than just another species, where we go, oh, well, if it's not a human, it's not really worth anything, then you start to kind of look at these things differently. And I think that in a country that's been wrought with so much racism and so much violence for hundreds and hundreds of years, where the majority of the population has just been bashed and diminished continuously, it's really important to bring up the topic of why. Why do we treat each other the way that we treat each other? And how does that methodology reflect and then rebound into our daily lives? And how does it affect others around us? And how does it affect the way that we go about the things that we do and the way that we're influenced to purchase and to consume and to help? Because you think about these animals and you think about them and you say, well, it's an animal. It doesn't have economic value. It's a cute thing, something. But you think about people and it's like, we will do anything to save human lives. We're so adamant about saving human lives, From people that are born with certain handicaps to someone who loses a limb, someone who's starving. Someone else will always be out there like, you know what, like these people deserve a chance to live. But throughout time, so many fewer voices have stood up and been proponents of animals having that same sort of necessity of life. And it's funny to think about because you look at the average human being and how much benefit does the average human being actually give to the earth? How much benefit does the average human being actually, put out there so that there's a progressive change happening that creates some sort of movement toward goodness, toward lifestyle sustainability, toward realistic endeavors that allow, a progression of love and enjoyment. So much of human life is wasted away purely on an economic fantasy reality lifestyle.
And the system that we are a part of, in the case of the vervet monkeys, I mean, part of the Monkey Foundation, it's called the Vervet Monkey Foundation, right?
Or the VMF.
The VMF for short. Yeah, and is the economic, or shall I say, the ecological role that the monkey actually plays, like even in the natural environment, like it mentions something about the seed germination and the
Yeah.
food dispersal.
Yeah, the monkeys
and then
have to
they
try.
realized, exactly, and that's part of the ecosystem, correct? I mean,
Yeah.
is that, and you go into that in the film and the importance of that and connect it to the role that human beings play in all this.
As well as other animals. Because what you're talking
That's-
about is
and we're
these
looking
monkeys,
at one species, right? One animal of one.
Well, it's easier to focus on one topic,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
more accessible for the average person to want to watch, or any person to want to have their attention invested on one thing that they care about. And what's more fun to watch than a baby animal, and a baby monkey, nonetheless, that's going through a story. If you can draw some sort of intellectual comparisons that can be given to the average person who does not indulge in scientific entertainment, then suddenly they're going to be learning something just by enjoying themselves. And I think that's the massive message that I'm trying to profess, is that that's the element of current social media that I think is weak and that needs to have the biggest change, is that, and when I say social media, I mean all media throughout history. It's always sort of, it's always sort of pushed forward people that don't necessarily do anything.
That's right.
They're just sort of like, they have a product, they have something to sell, and that's cool.
Right.
But like, there has to be a point beyond cool. There has to be a point where everybody's not just trying to be cool. And there has to be a point where it's like, no, but what about like what you're doing? Like how, what, like think about your impact. Think about your responsibility as like a creature that's living and surviving. Like, we are very destructive and careless, and we really focus on ourselves because we allow elements of our lives to just compact down on us and become the most like overwhelming aspects of any aspect of the day. Every breath can become labored because of some minutia that occurred between an interaction of disagreement. And it's like, but wait, there's so much more going on than these like ridiculous parodies of life that we throw each other into.
Yeah, and explain how the Vervet monkey. It's really easy to get that confused, like with vermin. And
exactly.
Because technically there was that element to it too.
Oh, they've always been considered a vermin.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that their name is so similar to vermin, vervet, but they're not vermin. And that's the issue. Is like they do have an important role in the ecosystem, like all animals. How are we supposed to care about an animal when people are being shot in the street by police?
That's right.
And it's like, you know, and that's the thing. Like, everybody wants some sort of change. Everybody wants to feel power and wants to feel important and wants to feel like their life is worth living and wants to enjoy the beauty of life around them.
And that's so true, and it's all connected.
But why can't we apply that to all of life? Just because they're not expressing it the same way that we express it to each other, and just because we don't see the same sort of hurt and pain and struggle in them when we communicate with them, we just say, oh, well, they're not feeling it. But what?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
That's true.
And that's why I feel like, you know, the idea of the internet is so important, because it has allowed so many people from so many different places to share ideas so easily.
Right.
And that's more what it's about, is that sharing of knowledge. It's not the fact that there's truth, it's the fact that there's knowledge from multiple cultures, accessible by the individual, and that individual can then begin to form idealisms that aren't necessarily in line with their own country's or culture's traditions. And when you step outside the boundaries of your imposed traditions, you begin to observe human nature and nature in a completely different manner.